You guys, I'm only good at one thing, and that's talking about nutrition. Okay, so is it recording? I have no way of knowing.
Yes.
You can tell it is?
It says, I saw somewhere it says recording.
Okay, I'm going to trust you. That's how this is going to work.
Oh, great.
This is the trust tree. Okay, so as you guys probably know, my name is Erin, and I am going to talk about some basic nutrition basics, really. They're just things that I usually share with my clients. I used to struggle kind of getting them to drink from a water hose, which hopefully you guys won't feel like tonight. I tend to get a little over zealous and excited about this stuff, so I tend to share a little too much, but I have really tried to pare down the important aspects of nutrition with my clients so that they don't get overwhelmed, because it is very easy for that to happen. If you guys have questions or anything, I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to read them in the chat. Oh, there, that's how. Okay, so I guess you can type them in the chat. And I will leave some time at the end for questions also. How does that sound? Okay, so the first, I basically break basic nutrition down into kind of three major parts. And the first one is what we eat. The second one is when we eat it. And the third is why we eat what we eat. And what I mean by those, I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth with each one of those. So the first one, what we eat. And this is going to kind of vary a little bit depending on your specific goals or your client's specific goals, whether or not you're participating in, say, a high-fat, low-carb specific group or something along those lines. But what I typically share with my clients is there are two lists that I usually always recommend them to use, which is the Clean 15, and you can find these on the Environmental Working Group's website. So they've got the Clean 15, which are typically the fruits and vegetables, produce that you can get typically non-organic and still be good options. And then there are the Dirty Dozen, which are usually the ones that you either only want to buy organic or avoid, okay? And so definitely take the time to go over there and download those lists. I then go into easy either drop or swaps. And so there are 8 different categories that I encourage them to either drop or swap for something different in that category. And the biggest thing that I help them understand too is our ultimate goal is to, and the biggest step in regards to their beginning aspects of their nutrition is to unprocess their diet. Chances are the majority of your clients eat a very high percentage of fast food, packaged food, processed, refined foods. We need to eliminate as many of those, if not, I think it's impossible to eliminate all of them, because even some healthy options are going to be processed just for convenience. So the first one is gluten. Usually this is an issue for a good majority of people. And if they are not celiac, meaning they don't have an intolerance or a severe allergy to celiac, or with that, I always recommend that they utilize something else anyway, because gluten is just inflammatory pretty much across the board. And that's what we're really trying to do, is reduce the amount of inflammation that's taking place inside their body. So replace gluten with something else. And I have, who's on here? Who's not muted? Hold on a second.
Hey, Erin.
Mute. Yes.
Hey, Erin, it's Lauren. Are you streaming this into the team page?
I could not figure out how to do that. It
Okay.
asked me to log in as you, and I didn't have that information.
Oh, okay. That's what I gave. Okay, can you record this, because I want all the other coaches to be able to? Are you recording
Yep.
it?
Yeah, I'm
okay.
recording.
Love you. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No
Sorry to
problem.
interrupt.
Okay. So you're going to look for gluten-free options. Typically, the things that we get that have gluten in them are like breads. I think that's the biggest one. Tortillas might be another one. There are lots of great options out there for other forms of tortillas. Siete, I don't think I'm going to say it right, but Siete, I don't know. They offer a really good cashew, chickpea, almond, flaxseed tortilla. There's a whole bunch of different options. When it comes to bread, that's a little bit more difficult because gluten-free bread usually has really inflammatory oils in it. So you're going to have to do some investigating. But gluten is one of the ones that I recommend that they replace or they swap out. Dairy is the second one. Also recommend that they swap that out. That is a very easy swap. It really is. There are so many other milk substitutes that you can use. Cashew, flax, almond, coconut. I mean, there's a lot of them, right? The third one is eggs. Not necessarily swap them out per se, unless they have a full-blown allergy to them. There's really, I don't think, any good reason for that. But better quality. It's really, really important, I feel, that you look for pasture-raised eggs so that you're not consuming weird hormones and antibiotics and different things, because most of these chickens are going to be raised on a diet that we, as coaches, really don't recommend they eat, right? These chickens are going to be eating, gluten and soy and grains and all these things that cause inflammation. So if they're eating it and you're eating their eggs, by default, you're going to be eating that as well. The fourth thing is corn. And I recommend that they just remove it. However, ultimately, I'm not anyone's mom, and I'm not there to slap it out of their hands. So if they're going to consume corn, definitely replace it with a better quality, non-GMO, organic, which is not that easy to come by. But corn in general is not a really nutrient-dense food, and it turns straight to sugar when you consume it. So for me, there's really no nutrient like great reason to put it into my diet. The next one is peanuts. That is a very easy replacement. The biggest drawback that I get or resistance that I get from clients is that they're going to miss their peanut butter. I cry a small little tear, and then I just kind of tell them to suck it up and move on. Like, there is almond butter, there's cashew butter, there are lots of other great substitutes that you could utilize instead of peanuts. The only form of peanuts that I know of that people typically eat are in a chocolate-covered candy or in some kind of nut butter, right? So I don't know too many people that are actually eating whole peanuts, because people don't usually do that, like not with peanuts. So that is a fairly easy replacement. The next one is soy. Eliminate soy altogether. Soy is a xenoestrogen. It is an endocrine disruptor. It will jack up your hormones. It absolutely does not, at least here in the United States, the soy that is produced and grown is 99.99999% GMO. It is Roundup resistant, which means when you eat those soy products, you are consuming those Roundup resistant molecules, and those are carcinogenic to us in large amounts. And I know the FDA states that in small amounts it is safe, but when everything you're eating, and most of the people that you work with are eating a standard American diet, so lots, if not all of what they're eating has some type of soy product or byproduct in it. So they are actually consuming a lot of it. And soy just really, especially if any of your clients have either battled or have had any kind of female cancers in their family, definitely encourage them to ditch the soy. The only caveats to soy really are fermented soy. So like kimchi is not soy. Tofu, I don't particularly like the way it tastes, but it doesn't really taste like anything. There was something else that's fermented, but I can't think of what it is. You guys should see how like sparse my notes are. But tofu is one that I see a lot. And I always, because all tofu is packaged, always recommend and encourage them to read ingredients. I know Lauren talks about that a lot in all of her different platforms. Read your ingredients, because honestly, they have to know what's inside their food and to be able to recognize it, which I did not recognize any of the ingredients of any of the products that I used when I first started this. I would literally stand in the grocery store and Google shit as I would like be reading the back of products. And you just, over time, you figure this out. Now, chances are a lot of your clients probably won't take the time to do that, but it's important. So encourage them to do that. The next one is sugar and sweeteners. Now, obviously, with sugar and sweeteners, we want to reduce the amount of sugar that we're actually consuming. That happens naturally as we remove a lot of the processed and packaged foods in our diet, because it's got a lot of added sugar. But even the sweeteners that we choose to use, whether it's in our coffee or in some of the things that we cook, getting rid of like the table sugars and leaning more towards honey or maple syrup or coconut sugar, monk fruit. Those are the two that I use the most, is coconut sugar and monk fruit. They are not cheap, but here's the benefit in that. When a sweetener is not cheap, you use it a lot less often. It's like nature's way of putting you on a sugar restrictive diet. And so when a recipe calls for, a cup of sugar, and, monk fruit, which is like a very small bag, is like 14 or 15 bucks a bag, I'm going to see if I can get away with using half a cup of sugar and see how it tastes. So that's definitely something I encourage them to look at, the better quality sweeteners over what they typically use. The last one is removing trans fats from their diet completely. So trans fats are basically anything that contain hydrogenated oils. Okay, let's see who's not muted. There we go. So most of your peanut butters have hydrogenated oils in them. Pretty much any baked good that you can find in any bakery or restaurant, for that matter. Most shortenings, canola oils, corn oils, most of those oils have hydrogenated oil in them. And so those are absolutely the most dangerous kinds of fats to have in your diet, and those are the ones that I recommend they remove. In conjunction with that, I usually always recommend that they pay attention to the type of oils that they use as well. They want to remove corn, cottonseed, and canola oil, soy, saffron, and sunflower oil. Those are the real basic ones. Really, Any of the seed oils are typically very high in omega-6 and extremely low in omega-3, which make them very inflammatory. When it comes to oils, I really like to make it very simple and basic for them. I recommend olive oil for your salad dressings, coconut or avocado oil for cooking, and possibly some type of tallow, whether it's duck tallow, beef tallow, pork tallow, for either cooking. I don't know that I would use those in salad dressing, but I've sauteed stuff in it. So I just kind of like to narrow it down for them so they don't have like so many choices, because sometimes that overwhelms them also. Let's see. So that's basically what I cover when I talk to them about their nutritional roadmap, or like guidelines of what they're going to eat. The next one that I usually cover with them is when we eat. And that covers two big aspects. One is intermittent fasting, and why that's important. Giving your body enough time in between meals for your hormone levels to balance. As soon as you get done eating, your insulin levels will rise because it's got to pull all that sugar out of your bloodstream, shuffle it away where it belongs. And that is a hormone that should rise and fall throughout your day. You do not want a static increase or high level of insulin throughout your day. And if you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, your insulin levels are never coming back down. They're never getting low. And when your insulin is present in your body, there are other hormones that cannot be present while it's there. And leptin is one of them. Leptin is your fat storage hormone, and it is what is present when you are able to actually tap into your fat storage and use that for energy. So if your insulin is constantly pumping because you're eating every so many hours, you are never going to tap into that fat storage, because one, your leptin levels are never going to be high enough to do that. And two, you're constantly refilling those glucose storage tanks. Okay? So you have to give your body enough time to deplete those before you fill them up again. So glucose is what sugar turns to in your body when it wants to use it as energy, because that is the easiest form of energy for your body. It can burn glucose very quickly. It prefers to burn fat, but it definitely takes more effort and it burns more calories to try and convert those fat cells into ketones so that it can actually use it for energy, which we want, but that's never going to happen if you're eating every, couple of hours. So I always recommend, especially when they start out, to shoot for like a 12-hour fasting window, which should be doable for anybody, okay? When you stop, like most of that time you were sleeping at night. So 12 hours should be able, like anybody should be able to hit the 12-hour mark. If they can make it to 14, that's ideal. 14 to 16 hours is really your sweet spot. Anything over 18 is not any more beneficial in regards to health benefits than a 16. So a 16, 18 is pretty much roughly the same as far as health benefits go, unless you're, you kick it into like a 24 or 32 or maybe 72-hour fast. I don't ever recommend new people doing that, ever, because they'll just think you're like evil. But the other thing you have to keep in mind is that fasting for those long periods of time can alter your hormones in not such a great way. And some who are a little bit older, it can push you into, it can jack up your periods and things like that. So you really have to be a little careful with that, okay? So I recommend doing a solid intermittent fasting window for a good amount of time before, I personally don't recommend long fasts unless you have like a health issue. You're fighting cancer, maybe you're struggling with epilepsy or something like that, like severe cases, I will recommend an extended fast. But on the regular, I typically don't. And of course, if you have anybody that you're working with that obviously struggles with some kind of eating disorder, I don't know that I would recommend intermittent fasting at all, to be honest. So one of the other reasons why intermittent fasting is so beneficial, when you go those long periods, so you want to give yourself about 4 to 6 hours between your meals. So even during your eating window, you want to give yourself at least 4 to 6 hours of space in between those meals. Because of my schedule, my fasting window is usually somewhere between 16 or 18 hours. If it's one of the days where I hit that 18-hour mark, then chances are I'm only going to have 2 meals that day. I'm going to have my lunch, and then I'm going to wait 4 to 5 hours, and then I'm going to have my dinner. Those are large meals, but that's typically how it works. As long as they're getting their nutrition in those meals, those 2 to 3 meals, it doesn't matter what, like, you don't need to eat them every couple of hours some people do struggle having those larger meals, because when you do increase your fasting window, you tend to have a little bit larger meals because you have a smaller time frame in order to get those in. That's why the shake really is helpful, because that is one of my meals. I load that thing up with tons of greens and healthy fat, and it's a meal, but it's easy to drink. The other thing, you know what, I just realized I missed something on that first nutrition guideline. I'll come back to it in just a second. The other thing that takes place when you allow yourself to have space in between meals is that your digestive system can actually accomplish something called clean sweeps, which it actually flushes out your digestive tract and basically sweeps it clean so that it can get rid of all the gunk that can get stuck inside your intestines, so that you have full and clean bowel movements. If you're not giving yourself enough time of having an empty stomach, those clean sweep digestive sweeps only take place when your stomach is empty. And if your stomach is never empty, those are never occurring. So again, another reason why it's really important to give yourself time between those meals. So one thing that I always touch on in regards to their nutrition also is how to balance their meals. Sometimes it's really overwhelming for new customers to look at what they have to eat and see all of these different colored containers. And they're like, but then I have to carry this list around and whatever. Over the years, I have really kind of pared this down and made it very basic. In fact, it talks about this. I think Cindy is actually reading this book right now. It's a great book. It's called Body Love. It's an excellent book. I recommend everybody read it. She talks in this book how making sure that your meals are balanced absolutely helps with a bunch of different things. So what she means by having a balanced meal is you've got fiber, which is typically your vegetables, you've got fat, and you've got protein. That makes a balanced meal. So I usually recommend, depending on the client and their size and how tall they are and what bracket they might be in, 1 to 2 servings of protein, 2 to 3 servings of vegetables, and a fat. So either a blue or an orange. That is a balanced meal. That makes it easy. If they want to incorporate a yellow or a purple, that's up to them. But what I make sure that they understand that are key components you cannot go without in your meals is your vegetables, your protein, and your fat. And the reason why you need to balance them that way is because many of the minerals and vitamins that are in our vegetables have to bind with fatty acids in order for them to be absorbed into your body or into your digestive tract. If you don't bind them, most of those nutrients that your body so desperately needs passes straight through your digestive tract and goes right into the toilet. It's incredibly important that you make sure that, and it's, I have one client who absolutely hates salad dressing. She'll eat salads with no dressing on them whatsoever. And I'm like, you cannot do that. You have to put an avocado in there, put nuts in there, do something. You have to include a fat for your body to absorb all of the nutrients that are in those vegetables. And all of the other macros are fashioned very similarly. Many of the nutrients that are included in your proteins need to bind with other nutrients in vegetables and in your fats in order to fully absorb into your body, okay? So it's incredibly important to have that balance. And if I'm working with someone who is 5 feet tall and, she's 150 pounds, I'm going to recommend that she do 1 serving of protein, 1 to 2 servings of vegetables, and a healthy fat, right? So you kind of have to know the ranges for the different height and weights of your clients as well. Okay. What else did I forget? Anything else before I move on? Oh, so in regards to timing, like I mentioned, you want to give yourself about 4 to 6 hours in between every meal. You want to cut off your eating for the day. You want your fasting window to start at least 3 hours before you go to bed. You do not want insulin pumping through your system at high rates or high levels when you go to lay down to go to sleep. Your body doesn't function well that way. It really doesn't. In order to get the restful sleep that your body needs, certain hormones need to be present. Like I mentioned before, there are certain hormones that you need to have present when you relax and power down for the night that can't be there when insulin is pumping through your system. So 3 hours before you plan to hit the hay, make sure that you cut off all eating. And for some of us who don't like to get up in the middle of the night, I also cut off my drinking at that time too, so that I don't have to get up and go pee at 1 a.m. Okay, so we've had what do we eat, when we eat it, and the last thing that I typically share with them is why we eat what we eat, and that's really more centered around the mindfulness of this journey and how. Because mindfulness really does have a very large part in your nutrition. How you think about food, how you feel about food, the relationship that you have with food. If it gives you stress or anxiety when you think about it, do you think it's good or bad? Are you good or bad? Because there's a whole slew, rabbit hole of mindfulness that I tackle with my clients. But the biggest one that I talk with them about from the get-go is, and I call it intuitive eating. I want them to become better able to recognize actual signals that they're having, hunger signals, nutrient deficient signals, satiation signals, all of those signals that our body sends to us that many times, especially in the beginning, we don't recognize. The biggest one that I get is I have a craving for sugar after dinner every night. Is that really a craving? It might be, but it might not be. It might be that you need magnesium. It might be that you're dehydrated. It might be a whole bunch of other things. It might be that you're anxious. It might be that you're sitting in a place that you normally have cookies at, and every time you sit there, your body naturally thinks that you should be eating cookies. It could be a lot of things. And getting them to really pay attention and ask themselves questions as to what that feeling really is really important. Are they eating at 8 a.m. because it's 8 a.m. or are they eating at 8 a.m. because they are hungry? Are they eating at noon because they are hungry or just because it's 12? Like, these are things I encourage people to eat when they are hungry. Stop when you are satiated, not when you are full, but when you are satiated. And then don't eat again until you are hungry. So some days you may fast for 12 hours. Other days you may fast for 18 hours. I really want them to pay attention to how they feel and follow that intuition, that feeling that they have in regards to when they eat. If we're just eating when, time on a clock says to eat, or this is, because it's lunchtime, they are teaching themselves to ignore those signals, which is one of the reasons why none of us recognize them. So it's incredibly important. And I get this question all the time. My clients will text me and they'll be like, I wasn't hungry for breakfast this morning, so I just didn't eat. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. I mean, you're not, were you passing out? Were you faint? Were you lightheaded? You make sure that you're safe, but yes, if your body is not hungry, do not eat, right? The other thing that I used to do in the beginning that I do not do anymore is it hurts to even say this out loud. I really used to encourage them and almost force them to get in all of their containers. Do not do that to your clients, okay? They are not going to die if they don't get all their containers in. Swear, all right? If they cannot get all of them in, there is a reason, and they need to listen to that reason. Now, if they're getting in 8 yellows and 2 purples, but they can't get anything else in, that's a whole nother issue. And they need to start with balancing their meals, right? Fiber, fat, protein. And then if they're still hungry or they're not yet satiated, then add that apple or, some avocado toast or, whatever. But really helping them to feel comfortable and confident to listening to the signals that their body sends to them. That's really key, because without that, they will always struggle with weight. Always struggle with weight. The other thing that I really like to cover with them also in regards to listening to their body is paying attention to their stress level. Stress plays a huge role in why we don't absorb much of the nutrients that we eat. If they are eating in a stressed out state, if they are chronically stressed out, if they have, a not healthy relationship with food, chances are they feel guilt and shame when they do eat, or when they eat certain things or too much of a certain thing. Anytime that sympathetic nervous system is ignited and that fight or flight response is engaged, your digestive system completely shuts off. Your digestive system only functions properly when you are in a rest and digest state. That's why it's called rest and digest. Your rest and relaxation state really needs to be turned on. And that also means, when you're eating, driving down the road, or stressed out and you're running in between meetings, that's not a rest and relaxation state. That's a stressed out state. You might as well not eat in that state because your body's not absorbing 90% of what you're eating anyway. So you're almost wasting money because you're going to poop it all out and it's not even going to, anyway. So it's incredibly important to chew really slowly, to be relaxed and not stressed out. It's incredibly important. Let's see, I made some other notes. Oh, this was a great visual. I am a very visual person. And I heard this, I was listening to a book the other day, and I heard this example and I thought, this is such a good visual. So our bodies can heal and do amazing things. If given the right conditions, they can actually heal themselves. I think your liver regenerates itself like once or twice a year, or something like that. Your adrenal glands regenerate themselves. Like so many of your organs actually repair and just do crazy, amazing things. But I want you to think about this. So if you go into your living room and you whack your shin on your coffee table, it's going to get red. It's going to get swollen. It's going to be sore, but it's going to heal, right? If you give yourself enough time and you protect it and you allow it time to heal, it's probably going to come back even stronger, right? However, if you whack it once, and then you come back a little later and you whack it again, and then you whack it a third time, let's say like at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, your shin is never going to heal. Our digestive tract is exactly the same way. So the reason it's so important to reduce as much as possible, I was going to say eliminate, but I just don't think that that's actually a realistic, someone's not muted. I can't figure out who it is. That's not a realistic statement, actually. But reduce as much as possible the inflammatory foods in our diet. If we don't eliminate those as much as possible and allow the inflammation inside our digestive tract to come down, actually in our entire body, if we don't do that, and we're constantly eating inflammatory foods at every meal, our digestive tract is never going to heal. All right, who is not muted? Let's find it. Where is everybody? If you're not muted, can you mute yourself? I can hear somebody. Okay. So it's really, really important that we pay attention to the ingredients that are in our food to make sure that we're reducing as many of those inflammatory components as possible. And we're eating as much anti-inflammatory foods as possible, which is why we really need a lot of vegetables. I think those are pretty much the basics that I cover with my clients, because that's a lot. Because typically if I go more than that, then I usually get that look, and that's usually when my signal that I've lost them. So that's pretty much it. Oh, and I've gone over, even though I think we started late. So let's see, do you guys have any questions? You froze, so we missed the third part of how you break down nutrition. Oh, crap. Well, hopefully you'll see it on the replay, because I don't remember exactly when I cut out. About ghee for cooking. Yes, ghee is another one. Ghee is another great option. Sometimes people who are even lactose intolerant can tolerate ghee. It really depends. But ghee is a great option for cooking. You use very little. It's real oily, so you don't have to use very much. Sesame oil, I'm kind of on the fence for that. Personally, I don't use it. The way that seed oils are created or not formed, made, the extraction process, they chlorinate it, they do all weird chemical treatments to it to make it edible. For me, sesame oil is a no-go. So I think that's just a personal, I mean, I have some clients who will use it like a dash here and there. Here's the thing. If 90% of your diet is like spot on, very anti-inflammatory, and you decide to throw a little sesame oil on the top of your dish or whatever, is that gonna, no, it probably isn't gonna make that big of an impact. However, if you're using it several times a month and you're really not great at your, making sure that your diet is really anti-inflammatory, I'd leave it out because you're doing more harm than good. What do you think of sprouted grains like Ezekiel bread? So here's the thing. Ezekiel bread is not gluten-free. So if they know that they do not have a gluten intolerance or allergy, it is a great option. If I'm gonna eat bread, the only kinds of bread that I will eat is a sprouted grain or a sourdough. And not just any sourdough, because you go to this, like you buy a sourdough at the grocery store, they did not make it in the proper fermented process using they're still using crap ingredients, okay? Bleached flour and junk. I get sourdough bread from, typically the only place I will get that from is like an artisan type bakery, right? It doesn't happen that often, but because I don't know of that many places, and I'm real lazy, guys. I'm not going to drive around looking for this stuff. But sprouted bread I can find in my grocery store. I did buy this paleo bread the other day. I'm not even going to bother sending you the link because it's like crazy expensive, and the bread literally is like this big. It's like so small. The picture looked so much bigger on Amazon, and then I got the loaf and it was like this big, and it was like 4 times the cost of like a normal, anyway, so there are options, but usually they're not cost effective. So yeah, Ezekiel is a good option. Do you eat, do I eat the beach bars? No, I don't. I don't buy them and I don't eat them. And I actually don't even recommend them to my clients because they have sunflower oil in them. So yeah. Awkward turtle. Actually, I mean, I don't get their collagen either because the collagen is junk. It's not potent enough. And I don't know where they got it from. Okay. Any other questions? You guys feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions if you have any.
Erin, I think you froze for everybody, and so it may not show up in the recording, but you started off by saying what to eat, when to eat, and then there was a third one that
why we eat what we eat, and that really covered like the mindful aspect of it, the intuitive, being really like able to recognize signals, how it feels to the biggest thing that I get from my clients is what they thought was a sugar craving in the beginning. They come to find out later, oh, my body's actually telling me that I need water. That's what that feeling is. Or they start to recognize what it really feels like to be, when your body has that feeling of needing like protein. Like I can tell the difference when I am craving or needing vegetables over protein. I call it protein lethargy. So when I need protein, I just want to go to sleep. I want to go to sleep. Like I don't even have the energy to make food. I literally just want to lay down and sleep. And I know that's the signal. I need to eat some protein. And these are different signals that your body, that we just need to get better at recognizing and not just doing the blanket, statement of, I just need sugar. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Oh, I think
I do. I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
What nutrition books, PD, do you recommend?
Oh,
Wanting to.
God, there's a lot of them. So the Obesity Code is a great one. Complete Guide to Fasting. I'd have to look up. I've got so many. Let's see. That Body Love book that you're reading is amazing. Let's see. Eat Fat, Get Thin. That's another. I hate the title of that book, but it's a great book. Let's see. Let me start at the top here. Brain Body Diet. That's a really good one.
What was that one, Erin? I'm typing them in the chat.
Oh, good. Thank you. Brain Body Diet by Sarah Gottfried. All of Sarah Gottfried's books are amazing. What else? If you guys want some like mindful books too as recommendations, let me know. I'll type those out later and give those to you. But
What about The Planet Paradox?
it's a great book. Amazing book. Did I say Obesity Code? I think I already said that one. Wired to Eat, amazing. Brain Fog Fix, that's a great one. The Walls Protocol, great book. I can't say this word, Obesogen Effect, The Obesogen Effect, great book. Talks about toxins and all kinds of great things. Primal Blueprint, it's a really good one. Genius Foods, excellent book. If you guys do not follow Max Lugavere on Instagram, you need to follow Max. He is really good looking also. But
Can you say his name again, Max?
Max Lugavere. Yeah, like it sounds, Lugavere. He has got great content. Another good one. Let's see. Deep Nutrition. That's a good book. That's going to take you some time, but that's a great book. What else? You ever want to learn about how jacked up like the whole medical system is? You can read Tripping Over the Truth. That'll open your eyes. Fat for Fuel, great book. Blood Sugar Solution, really good. Anything Mark Hyman wrote is really good. In Defense of Food, again, great book. Secret Life of Fat, excellent book. Hashimoto's Protocol, really great book. Again, Isabella Wentz is the author. Anything she writes is really good. Let's see, what else? Gary Taubes.
Favorite podcasts?
Huh?
Podcasts?
Pretty much any of the authors of the books that I've just listed, they usually all do podcasts as well. So most of the podcasts that I listen to are authors that I've read books on. Anything Dave Perlmutter. So Hyman has a podcast. Perlmutter has a podcast. Lugavere has a podcast. Mark Sisson has a podcast.
What about Model Health Show?
Oh, yeah. Oh, and he has a great sleep book, too. That was like one of the first ones I read.
Yeah, I thought you were fixed to say, and he has a great body, too.
Yeah, well, that he does. And y'all, his podcast is like, you can listen to it while you're going to sleep at night. His voice is like butter.
Oh, yeah.
It's like butter.
JJ Virgin?
Yes, JJ Virgin, one of my favorites. You know what? Oddly enough, I have not read any of her books, but I listen to her podcast religiously. So,
Lori, I thought you asked if he was a virgin. I was like,
Sorry, I
that
did.
is unnecessary information. But is he? Hell no.
That's hilarious.
Kim.
Okay, let's see. We got a couple more questions on here. Beach bars, no. Okay, can you explain about the peanut butter? What do you mean? Explain exactly what about the peanut butter? Robin, you can unmute yourself and ask if you're someone.
That's okay. Lori, I think, answered it a couple down. I didn't mean to say peanut butter. I meant to say peanuts. Sorry.
Oh,
And she explained it's a legume and it's inflammatory.
yeah.
So is that about
it? Yeah.
Is that about it? That yeah.
And they're really, I mean, much like soy, they're really, really largely GMO in the United States. Here's what's crazy. There are certain crops, soy is one of them. I'm pretty sure grains are another one that we cannot export to other countries because they're so crappy. So if it's something that we can't export into another country, I avoid it because that's jacked up for a whole lot of reasons. Yeah, okay. Oh, wow. Thank you for typing all that in, Lori. My goodness, you're good. Okay. All right. Do you guys have any other questions at all?
One of the things I will say about the PD is I think in the team page there, I know a while back, Leah had started a Google.
Yeah, she did.
And we were putting everything that we were, doing as far as PD in there. So make sure you look in the, I don't know if she has it organized as units anymore. I can't remember, but make sure you look in the team page. There's always.
It's still there in a unit.
Yeah.
I just looked in there yesterday. It's there. Yeah.
There's so much. There is a lot. And I mean, I love listening to podcasts too. I mean, there's just Model Health shows. He's the king in my eyes, but
he's so good. And that's the thing. Sometimes I'm like, I just need a whole day where I'm not going to do anything but listen to podcasts because I literally could do that all day long. But then
that's kind of the question that I have, maybe for me, maybe for a friend, but especially maybe for coaches that are newer to this. What would be your advice for somebody that is starting to learn this information and it can feel a little bit overwhelming or intimidating? Is there a place where you would recommend they start first, a certain book or a certain chunk or any mindset advice so that they don't get overwhelmed or feel like, well, I'm not Erin or I'm not Lauren or I'm not fill in the blank. How can I give this level of information to my peeps?
So I have a couple of learning disabilities and I am dyslexic. So when I don't read, I mean, I know how to, I choose not to. When I listen to these books, I literally have to take notes so that it actually sticks in my brain. So if you only knew how many notebooks in this house I had of all kinds of random stuff. So I would say sometimes actually moving your hands while so for me, it's writing. For some people, I know they can draw and listen at the same time. It helps for that information to kind of like sink in a little bit easier. But as far as who I would maybe start with, honestly, so when I have someone start with me and they are completely like have not a clue about food in general or what to believe, and for a while I considered this to be kind of like the Bible of my groups, was Hyman's Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? That is a very easy, simple to digest, laid out format, and it covers all aspects of food. So that's probably the one I would tell them to start with. And actually, all of his books are really easy to digest. So that might be an author I would start with.
I also think Model Health Show for podcast. I think Model Health Show for podcast as well. He has a really, he just has a knack for explaining things technical that you understand if you're not if you don't have a science-based mind. Yep. You don't have a logical mind like that. He just breaks it down so simply.
It is really good.
Yeah.
The model
I thought of line 2 to the Model Health Show and just grab the transcripts
Yes,
Smart.
that's what I did today.
Yeah. Well, and because I will tell you, I mean, it's kind of weird for me to answer this because I asked you it, but I mean, I can just, something that's worked for me, because I'm one of those people that if I feel dumb, I'll just kind of shut down and be like,
Right.
oh, you know, I'll take a chunk and then I read it and then I go and I immediately teach it in the group.
Right.
Because, you know, I always go by that teacher philosophy to teach is to learn twice.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, but I mean, I still get overwhelmed sometimes. So then I just have to back up and go, all right, you need to chill out. Why don't you go get drunk and come back to this?
You know, that's the other reason I think JJ Virgin's podcasts are really good too, because they're short. Like they're only 30 minutes and they're like quick and dirty. And so usually I'll take a couple notes and I'll do the same thing. I'll share it on.
Oh, dirty. What do you mean dirty? What do you mean, like dirty, like dirt outside, or like actually dirty?
Everything is dirty. What you're
I
talking
miss you. I just miss you a lot. Okay, bye.
about? Oh, good times. All right. Well, I guess if that is all you guys have, I will let you go because it has been an hour and I was only supposed to.
OMG though. So curiosity, did you record this on your computer?
I did, because I don't know technology. And so I'll have her upload it.
I just want to know, when are you going to upload it? Because I plan on using it immediately and taking all of it and giving it away to all my people and saying that this all came from me.
Well, I would love to say tonight if I can figure it out. I'm actually doing this on my MacBook Air, which I've only had for about 2 weeks, so I'm still learning how to use it. So if I can do it tonight, if I can figure it out, then tonight.
Well, message me if you need help.
Okay.
Just saying. Okay, bye.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining tonight. And if you think of any questions after, just post them in the group, and I'm sure one of our lovely girls here can help out. So have a great
You're
night.
amazing. You're amazing. Thank you for being
See you guys
here.
later. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Erin.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Erin.
Bye.